Hey everybody, it's been about a month of me using my DIY MFT and I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what I like and a few things that I don't like, as well as a few things that I have planned. So first and foremost on the likes, I think I really love the accuracy. So just the layout of all of the dog holes on this is absolutely perfect. Being able to kind of plop in any sort of dog hole and have my fences aligned, just absolutely perfect to get those 90-degree cuts. I've done a few tests and they're just bang on. So really thrilled with the accuracy of the table overall. The other thing that I really like is the portability. So just being able to have it on casters and pull it around is something that's awesome. So here in Southern Ontario, we do have some pretty wild weather as far as bouncing between humidity, dry weather, beautiful weather, all that kind of stuff. So being able to just wheel this out into the driveway to get a little bit of work done and then also back into the shop and reposition it in the shop is something that I really like. Something else I am so thankful that I did on this was the finish. So this is an extremely durable table. So I've had guys over in the garage having a beer, that kind of stuff. And with it being MDF, I was really worried about the moisture. And my wife encouraged me to not cheap out on finish. So I got the Osmo Poly-X oil, so the 30-31 clear coat. This is the 750 mil, and I did, I think 3, maybe 4 coats on this, and it used about half of the 750 milliliters. And it is just, like, it just feels like just like a phenolic top. Like, it just feels absolutely perfect. So I'm thrilled with the results of that. Being able to unclog the dog holes was super easy, so no regrets on that whatsoever. Another thing that I really like about this table is, just not just the accuracy of it, but also how flat it is. It is absolutely perfect. This whole top is so flat. And when you're working with MDF, it is a very nice piece of material as far as getting those flat kind of reference points. And I am just absolutely thrilled to not have to rely on the cast iron of the top of my table saw. And I can now use this, not necessarily to get things absolutely 100% perfect, but it's pretty close. And you can see there, by straight edge, it is pretty much bang on. So really happy with this. The size of it is also really nice. And let's just recap the size on this for those that have not watched too many of these videos before. And I will link in the description below all my other update videos on this, but it's about 38 inches by, whoa. The casters aren't locked. By 80 inches. So 38 by 80 inches, which I would say is generally good. In my small one-car garage shop, I wouldn't want it much bigger. And it does give me that really big reference surface. But that is also one of the dislikes, is that it's not quite big enough for me to perfectly break down large sheet goods. Not just because I can't cut the length this way. I generally don't have an issue with the length. But if I'm loading up an entire sheet good on top of this, and I have done a few projects with this, I'm cutting off on the edge, like this, in order to not cut into the top because I want to get it pretty accurate. But I don't have any support on the right side. And that's actually one of the future things that I have planned for this table, is to almost make to literally make a second table. Probably a bit bigger than the sacrificial top that I have over there that I can use on this table every once in a while. But probably, I would guess 2 feet by about the 38 inches across. So 2 feet wide, so 24 by 38 inches on casters. So I can have it rolled over on the sides so that I can cut right between them and have support on either sides. So I do think that that's something that I'm going to be making in the near future. So that's going to be one of those future upgrades that I'm definitely looking forward to. On the dislikes, so it is large. And I think that that's where the size is both a like and a dislike. In my small one-car garage shop, this is big. Now, knowing that I did have a large table, I had this table in the middle of my shop before with the table saw kind of feeding into it. It doesn't really take away from what was in here before, so it's not really any larger. But it does make it more difficult to maneuver my table saw out, which I haven't needed to use very often. I'd say in the last month, there's maybe one time where the table saw would have been really nice to use. And for me, being like having to pull out the table saw and then level it, and that's one of the other things I wish I spent a little bit more time analyzing, is that the table saw outfeeds onto this assembly table and to this MFT, but the table saw is just about a quarter of an inch too low. So I had done all my measurements, but because the garage floor slopes into the middle, even though it is about a quarter inch taller than the DIY MFT, where the MFT gets positioned when I am outfeeding onto it, it actually drops down. Or sorry, it's actually raised up, and I need to jack up the table saw by about a quarter of an inch. So I've got a few pieces of board there that I can do that, but it is just a little cumbersome to wheel that out and push it onto that. So that's one of the things that really does annoy me a little bit. But let's finish off the really good things about this table, and I think that is the flexibility. So the flexibility with the dog holes, so being able to get my track mounted absolutely perfect with the other dogs that are holding this fence in place is amazing. So I absolutely love that. Being able to use other accessories, so whether it's just kind of your standard dog, and I have been using just these regular dogs to hold pieces in place every once in a while. I did get these new Festool clamping elements that I absolutely love, and they hold pieces in place really well. These ratchet clamps from Festool also work really well, and you can get the same ones kind of from Bessie, but hold them in place really well in two different ways. So one way is like this, where if you just want to hold down the piece, so you can do some glue ups and that sort of thing, but you can also feed it below. And then when I'm using my router around this is actually low enough that it's not going to get in the way of any of the cords with the router. So really handy to have that. So the flexibility of this is absolutely amazing. Being able to line up my cuts along here is absolutely perfect. It's something that I had planned on doing, and I think I had this feedback on one of my videos, was to replace kind of where I'm cutting, both lengthwise and across this way, with quarter-inch MDF strips that would be replaceable over time, but the reality is that it's so accurate every single time that eventually I'll route out kind of a space and put in that quarter-inch strip. But I think it might take a year or so before I actually have to do that. And even lengthwise, when I'm not using dogs to align my track absolutely perfectly, I can kind of eyeball along here with an entire like 8-foot sheet good and just kind of get it pretty close. So it's not going to be absolutely perfect. So this kind of 18 millimeter wide blade, maybe I'm working with like 24 millimeters or something along there, but so close. So I don't have to worry too much about really making this a sacrificial top, which was my original plan. And yeah, let's take a look at the list and see what else there is. So on the dislikes, the accessory cost. So that is something to talk about with a table like this. So whether you're looking at a DIY MFT, an actual Festool MFT, you are going to be running into a pretty expensive realm of accessories. So whether it's these dogs that I got from UJK and Axminster, to some of the Festool clamping elements, the Festool clamps, or the wide variety of accessories in here that I have to really kind of make it worth its while. So the accessories, plus all the lumber, plus the jigs to build this table, I'm probably a little over $1,000 into this. And yes, an MFT from Festool is just a little bit more than that, although it's about half the size, a little less than half the size, and I'd still have to buy most of the accessories anyway. So when you're comparing those two things, yes, a $1,000 table is a lot of money, but the reality is that I was gonna have to buy a lot of these accessories anyways, and now I have total flexibility to build more of these tables when I want to build them. And I think that's something I might even talk to some woodworkers in the neighborhood about to see if they might be interested in paying a little bit to help me kind of pay back some of the cost of the tools, because I now have all the tools to do this really well. Another thing is the table saw compatibility. So not just because I measured it improperly, but it is also just a little clunky to like use as an outfeed table. And I think that I do still want to double down on using it as an outfeed table. But one of the things that I am considering for the future is still moving from my larger rigid R4512 table saw that can take dado blades. I've got a whole bunch of accessories for it, but the reality is that it has kind of been sitting in the corner here ever since I made a lot of my tool changes and moved to the track saw. So I am looking at moving towards a smaller job site saw that would actually have some sort of mounting mechanism that could be removable on the end of this table that could absolutely have it perfectly outfeed onto the top of this. I could plop the saw on and then go ahead and use it. And I think for me with the track saw, I really am only using the table saw for small parts, and it is overkill for that and takes up a lot of room in the shop with the dust collection system. One other thing that I want to note is just when it comes to these dogs, so these are the super dogs from UJK, sold through Axminster Tools, but I did run into this issue when cutting larger sheet goods, is that they ran into the battery on the back of the saw. So the good thing with this is that, so even though the Festool track saw, you can operate it with one battery, but it has to be the lower battery, so that doesn't really help. But I can get smaller dogs. So this is a 60 millimeter dog. I could easily move to, I think, a 50, or I'll probably get a 40 millimeter dog. So more than high enough for this clip, but there'll be lots of clearance over top. So I just need to place an order for those sometime soon. And I think that about does it. So as far as kind of what's next, so I already mentioned table saw attachment for a potential compact job site table saw. Being able to build a second table just so that when I am working with large sheet goods, I can have support on the other side. And then finally, I need to get to some organization underneath. So I've got all this space here, and my original plans did involve building a shelf partway through, which could help me take a lot of the material that's over on this cart here and put it onto that. So that is going to be one of my plans. So I am going to be working on that sometime soon. And I'll probably do another update video at that point. But overall, I've been using this for about a month. I did just build this entire cabinet from it. Still need some of that hardwood edge banding. But also a big drawer for some of the longer accessories that go with it. And honestly, this table made building this a breeze. Being able to just get those quick, repeatable cuts, put the track saw on, cut it. Just so much better than working with a miter saw, even working with a table saw, a little less cumbersome. So absolutely thrilled with how it's been so far. And I'll do another update or two in the future as I get going with it a little more. Thanks for watching.